I am Chris Tang. Where's my video? Oh, wait. Oh, it's right here. Okay, so I'm an indie game developer at Genesia Hitsparks Games. We kind of broke off from Capcom and did production work for them a long time ago, but now we want to make our own IPs. I am the senior game designer on Strike Blazinger, which is a high-speed, high frame rate spiritual successor to the arcade rail shooter, hopefully coming out in the next year for PC, arcade, and console. Anybody looking forward to that? Yay, thank you. So I'm not a programmer by trade. This is the first game I've done all the gameplay code for so far, so I'm kind of proud of it. And also that was recently released was FX Unit Yuki for the PC Engine TurboGrafx CD system. And soon to be available on Sega Genesis, Dreamcast, and Windows PC. I did some additional writing and design on that, and they're kind of like our character crossover partner, so the game that's, or the character that's the main character in our game is a secret character in their game. Going back further, I have past experience working on many fighting games, with the Street Fighter franchise in particular for Capcom, as well as Primal Rage and Primal Rage 2, which was infamously canceled. I did a session on Primal Rage 2 that I recommend. People say it's pretty good, so it was a GDC talk on games getting canceled and how to live with it. I started in the 90s working at Tengen and Atari, working on stuff like that. I worked on Gauntlet 4 and Rampart and some other stuff. So yeah, I've been in the business a while, but I started when I was young, so I'm not as old as I seem. And in the mid-2000s, I worked at BPS, Blue Planet Software, who is the official agent and custodian of the Tetris IP. And I worked there as a design consultant at large and a designer on Tetris Worlds, which was an early basis for the modern, more approachable versions of Tetris that you see today. And my favorite design contribution to Tetris back then was this trailing shadow that I came up with for the hard drop mechanic. And before this was put in, pieces would just teleport instantly to the bottom, and you couldn't really tell what the hell was going on. So I thought it should have like a translucent shadow to help you kind of like know what's going on visually. It looks kind of cool too. So current games like Tetris Effect and Tetris 99 have retained this feature, so it makes me happy when I see it that developers are still using it, even though I didn't get to directly work on those games. And aside from game development, I have a background as a successful esports competitor, best known for being the Sega World Champion, as broadcast worldwide on MTV in 1994. And I'm 1990 Nintendo World Championships Los Angeles City Champion, so I got one of those awesome cartridges that you hear about. And I am the Hawaii State Nintendo Champion, just to name a few highlights. And incidentally, my game career was started when I was discovered at the Nintendo World Championships when I was still a kid, and I ended up working at Atari Tengen about a week after that. Kind of because I was plugging Tetris, I'm like, oh, Tengen, Tengen Tetris, I know that. So esports and Tetris in particular have led my life down an amazing path. So it makes sense that I continue to be involved in these spaces as a commentator and founding consultant for the Classic Tetris World Championships going on 10 years now. And as you heard before, I'm the voice of the Boom Tetris for Jeff meme, and I'll explain that later. But for now, I'll start with the most basic description of the Classic Tetris World Championships. So Tetris for the Nintendo Entertainment System was released in 1989, and it's become one of the most fiercely competitive versions of one of the most beloved games in the world. But there's a plot twist. Tetris for the NES does not have a two-player mode. So what do? Two old CRT TVs are placed next to each other, each connected to an old 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System with Tetris game and controller. Two players play the game of Tetris at the same time. One player walks away a winner. This version of the game was never intended to be played competitively this way. Yet, when recordings of these strange activities with ancient electronics are uploaded to YouTube, people watch. Our channel has grown to nearly 40 million views, and recently the viewership for our live events has grown exponentially. The Classic Tetris World Championships are truly an anomaly in esports if you break it down to its basics. Yet there's a lot more going on that's allowed it to become a beloved esports phenomenon. At its core are passionate players and fans who love playing a pure classic version of a game that some consider to be perfect. We've evolved and improved the format as interest has grown, but it got us thinking. If we've been able to make a game that was never designed to be used for competition into something so compelling, maybe something important could be learned from it so that other great competitions, games, and esports may emerge. And that's why we're here. So beyond the basics, now we can pull back and see the bigger practical picture. We're now in our 10th year, having started from a small, humble community event held at a Los Angeles theater and have grown to be a sponsored yearly event season. Regional qualifiers held around the world expand our reach, leading to the World Championships in October. With the World Finals being held at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo since 2012, we've been able to grow alongside this event and help to make Portland an esports destination, leveraging its already strong retro gaming scene and culture. We've created a vibrant and friendly competitive community and grown a substantial following along the way, making it the most popular retro esport in the world, with most of our growth happening just in the last 2 years. So to understand how all this happened, it's important to know the retro roots of both the game and its previous competitive legacy. In 1989, Nintendo released their versions of Tetris for the 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System and Game Boy. While these were not the earliest versions of the game released, they were the most widely distributed and heavily marketed versions of the game ever made and served as the first exposure of Tetris for a generation of gamers. Tetris would then go on to become one of the most played and loved video games around the world, as you probably know. In 1990, Nintendo launched the Nintendo World Championships and Power Fest. Featuring a stage show with giant screens and live announcers calling the action, this 30-city tour would challenge millions across the country and was the largest competitive gaming event held at the time. Loosely based on a fictitious competition in the movie The Wizard. Anybody remember that? Yeah, so it's like, yeah, Fred Savage. It featured a triathlon of games in which Tetris was the final and pivotal game that determined the outcome of the competition. As video games gained traction to become more mainstream in the 90s, this first NWC began an era where console manufacturers like Nintendo and Sega held massive multi-city competition tours where players of all ages could enter for free or low cost and play in a regional to qualify for a national or world title. Participants and champions of this era would later be involved in the interest behind and the formation of the Classic Tetris World Championships. So decades passed, and as retro gaming rose in popularity along with the growth of the internet, it was found that many people were still interested in playing classic NES Tetris. Information and media such as gameplay videos began to surface, and in 2009, Harry Hong submitted a video which earned him the first Twin Galaxies max-out score of 999,999 points. This led to the production of a short film about Harry by filmmaker Adam Cornelius, and this led to more interest in finding other potential Tetris masters. Because it seemed that after all of these years, one of the most iconic and widely loved games of all time did not yet have an official champion. What? So, NWC 1990 competitor Robin Mahara teamed up with the filmmaker Adam and producer Vince Clemente to hold a competition to answer this unanswered question. Who is the best Tetris player in the world? On August 8, 2010, the first Classic Tetris World Championship was held in the Downtown Independent Theater in Los Angeles, and we used the original NES console and the Tetris cartridge from 1989 and played it all out on CRT TVs. The short film Adam had started with now grew to become an award-winning documentary film, Ecstasy of Order, The Tetris Masters, which chronicles the road to the first championship and reveals what happened to original NWC champion Thor Ackerland. This film would serve to increase interest in classic Tetris and our competitive scene going forward. So, why NES Tetris? Well, NES Tetris is considered to be a more basic, difficult, but pure version of Tetris. Pieces lock down nearly instantly when they land, and you can't slide them around. It's really strict. And there's only one piece in the next window. The basic left and right movement, delayed auto shift behavior, rotation movement rules, and the like are simple but nuanced. We call it DAS, where you hold down like a spacebar on a keyboard, it'll go once, and then it'll go a whole bunch of times after that, auto-repeating. That's what we call DAS, and that's like something that you need to know to play NES Tetris effectively. So it has these mysterious design quirks that make it compelling and challenging, but in particular, the scoring displays a maximum of 999,999 points, with a total score being just on the brink of possibility. As such, maxing out Tetris is an effective, attractive bucket list gaming achievement and a milestone for Tetris esports hopefuls. We don't know for sure if this seemingly meticulous balancing was by design or a very happy accident, but many consider this version of Tetris to be perfect as a result. So if you are the programmer of this game out there watching, or know who is, please contact us because we would love to hear from you. So when a player reaches level 29, NES Tetris pieces fall at a rate of 1 line per frame, making horizontal movement nearly impossible, resulting in imminent death. This effectively acts as a kill screen and will instantly end the game for nearly any player. Only a difficult method of movement where a player hits the D-pad faster than 10 times a second to override the delayed auto shift called hyper tapping can allow for further survival. The kill screen behavior is unique to NES Tetris, and it cannot be played forever like classic Tetris variants such as Game Boy version or Tengen Tetris, which kind of lets you play forever because they're easy like that. The results of these mechanics create an imminent death situation, and round times are around 6 to 9 minutes at most in duration, which are a very good length for an esports match. So for a competitive game to be taken seriously as a sport, a standard has to be established which does not change over time. With NES Tetris, we have a version of the game that served as the first exposure to the franchise for many, has a legacy of tournament usage, is well documented, and has stood the test of time. As we've seen, players with exceptional skills from the 80s and 90s can still apply their talents even decades later. Yet the game is still approachable enough for younger or new challengers to succeed. Our player base doesn't have to worry about new versions, rules, game mechanics, or character nerfs interfering with their mastery of the game. More recent versions of Tetris have a faster appearance with more hard drop mechanics. Things teleport all over the place and they're harder to follow visually, and they allow for more room for error, like you can keep hitting the rotate button and the pieces will just bounce around. But we noticed that the slower visual pace of NES Tetris actually makes the game easier to learn and comprehend. Its simplicity ultimately makes it more fun to watch in an esports context, with misdropped mistakes and life or death situations coming across dramatically. Our tournaments run on original NES hardware and game cartridges, which are common and inexpensive to obtain even today, with the game being under $5 and old NES system setups well below $50. Emulation options are also abundant. A CRT television with no lag is recommended, however. We run all our events on CRTs as the precision of classic Tetris is so demanding, there are one-frame windows of error at high levels of play. Practice skills are directly applicable to the esport. If someone can consistently score high and max out on NES Tetris, they have a real shot at becoming world champion just by playing the game within its own rules. While I won't go into depth completely with Tetris play mechanics, a quick overview should be mentioned so that the bigger picture of our format will make sense. In the CTWC, the general strategy is like most versions of Tetris. Stack cleanly, leaving a one-block space on the right edge of the playfield, referred to as a well. Then use the long bar I tetramino to score Tetrises as much as possible. For our rule set, Tetrises are critical for scoring. That's why we go a little overboard celebrating them sometimes. They're like a touchdown or a jackpot. Even if they happen pretty frequently in gameplay, after a player digs themselves out of a bad situation, it's really satisfying to see them finally score that well-deserved Tetris comeback. Boom, Tetris for you. The best players will score Tetrises as safely as they can without wasting scoring potential by clearing lines that are not Tetrises. Because of the unique behavior of NES Tetris, this must be done within the confines of the 230-line window before the kill screen speed increase occurs, inevitably ending the game. As players move in and out of peril as the stacks rise and fall, the patterns of victory and defeat are illustrated. The dramatic saves and devastating mistakes are easy to understand, and with that, the visual satisfaction of a puzzle game, we feel all those elements are what make this an esport that's deceptively compelling and satisfying to watch. So now I'll mention some of what we learned over the years and the evolution of our commentary and terminology. Many common terms exist in Tetris. For instance, a Tetris well would be one example that every version of Tetris would have. But what's interesting is some unique terms have come into existence specifically because of the friction created by the CTWC format and playing the game competitively in a way that it was never designed to be. So pace. Some players play at a faster pace than others by pressing down on the D-pad, and even though one player may have a higher score currently, if the other player is playing at a slower pace, they may have more lines to work with to maximize their score. So that's important in determining potential outcomes and knowing who's really ahead. This is something we mention in commentary often, because it's not really obvious to new viewers. Droughts. NES Tetris has harsh, true random pieces and not a bag randomizer that guarantees piece variety like modern versions of Tetris. This results in a potentially long period without receiving a certain type of piece. Most importantly, that long bar I tetramino that's necessary for scoring a Tetris. So when droughts occur, they can be deadly. Burn. Champions must know how to stay alive and survive these droughts by doing a burn when necessary to clear lines, singles or doubles, preferably in a way that doesn't block the well. If the Tetris well is blocked badly, we sometimes call that a dig. If the dig is successful and the well is open again, a player is then Tetris ready. A speed transition is something we highlight in NES Tetris when a player hits level 19, since it's an important milestone during CTWC matches, and you won't see that term used much outside of this competitive context. Players need to keep their stack as clean as possible just before the transition, and awareness of the approach of the transition creates anticipation as their imminent death awaits. Conservative and aggressive play. So one of the most frequent comments we get, especially with our commentary, is how we mention aggressive or conservative play. How do you play Tetris aggressively? Do you punch your opponent that's sitting next to you? No. What we mean by that is by playing aggressively, more risks are taken to absolutely maximize the score by not burning off any unnecessary singles, doubles, or triples. Conversely, playing more safely and burning more lines will keep you out of trouble, but it won't score as much. Play too aggressively and you could end up topping out and gaming over, but play too conservatively and your opponent will kick your ass with score. So terminology helps us be aware of all these factors that determine the outcome of a match. We can then commentate on them in step with the players as their play styles and personalities become a factor in telling the story that's unfolding while providing a better understanding of the game. Playful and relatable metaphors like digging add fun to the commentary. So there's more to it than just saying boom Tetris a lot, even though I think that helps excite people too. So check out this screen. Do you notice anything interesting about this situation, keeping in mind that these players are playing on two separate NES systems and TVs? Exactly. Both players get the same pieces. So a special cartridge pass-through device, sort of like a Game Genie. You guys know what a Game Genie is? All right. Works with the original NES Tetris cartridge attached and provides the same random piece seed for both players in a one-on-one match. Although we found that top-level players could be very consistent no matter what the piece set was, there is always a question of whether or not one player had an advantage over the other if they had different pieces in the match. With the same pieces for both players now in the same round, there would never be any doubt of that again, and that the outcome would be based on skill alone. So a referee rolls the dice prior to the round starting, and players will enter the number rolled, which will generate one of 1,000 possible random piece seeds. The players don't see the same thing that the broadcast viewers do. So we have this overlay that's designed by Trey Harrison, and that's what facilitates not only the gameplay screens and the competitor face cams, but it processes and reinterprets game information in real time, assisting us showrunners and increasing excitement for viewers. I'll go into a bit of detail on that now. So score readout provides automated math with optical character recognition, highlighting the score differential. Players who are behind will have their difference highlighted in red, while players who are ahead will have the difference highlighted in green. This area that you see at the bottom of the screen has a bunch of different stats, and those stats are not usually available in the game. So what the game is actually, or what our overlay is doing is, it's looking at the game, and every time it sees something, it's actually keeping that data and processing it, and then reinterpreting that data for viewers. So TRT stands for Tetris percentage rate, or what the percentage of lines are that have come from Tetrises. This is a good measure for how well a player is scoring. To max out the score, a player needs about 60% or higher percentage of Tetris lines. BRN stands for burn lines, or how many lines have been burned between Tetrises. Then, of course, the glowing long red bar, if that shows up in our overlay, that means a drought is taking place. The number of pieces spawned since the last long bar or eyepiece appeared is displayed below the icon. And there's a player name and match wins indicator. The red hearts indicate the number of matches won in the set. And this main gameplay area has a context-sensitive overlay that replaces dead screens and menus with logos and stats which improve viewer comprehension. Even more useful data and stats will be displayed here after a player tops out. And of course, the faces of the competitors are displayed nice and large, bringing the human element front and center, and they're always visible. So now to talk a little bit about the path to the championship for a player. We started this just as a yearly event, but now we hold regionals at satellite events all around the world. Following Portland Retro Gaming Expo's success came other gaming events growing in their own markets, such as Game On Expo in Phoenix, Arizona, and Retro City Fest in Southern California. As this network of local convention communities began to form, these up-and-coming shows became perfect sites for our regional events. Last year, we had 5 regional qualifier events in the US and partnered with Retro HK Gaming Expo for our events in Europe, Asia, and regionals in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Gamescom in Germany. While we continued the Classic Tetris European Championship, our first event partner, and that one's been going for a few years now. While participating in these regionals is not required to enter the World Championships, it's a nice throwback to the days when console companies would hold tours where anyone of any age could come and enter in their region and win a trip for their shot at the world title. And it's great to be able to give those kinds of opportunities to players once again. Growing our format while making the tournament more accessible and adding incentives for the players is a win for everyone involved. And these growing events, it's nice to have something that's kind of established at their show so people want to come out to it. So for our rules and format, qualifying is really simple. In the qualifying stage, players just play NES Tetris throughout the day and try to get the highest score that they can. They can either line up and make repeated attempts getting in the line again after they lose, or rent a station for a fee. These qualifying runs are literally just playing the stock game by themselves and trying for a score. And this one-to-one performance parity between practicing at home and qualifying makes it understandable and approachable for hopeful Tetris contenders. And is similar to the player versus player mechanics that are going to follow that. At the end of the qualifying period, the top scores, 8 for a regional or 32 for the World Championships, are rounded up and entered into a seeded bracket for the one-on-one matchups. The bracketed matches are a one-on-one score contest. Each player plays on a separate NES station. Games are started simultaneously, and they go for a score that can beat their opponents. There's no direct interaction between the play fields. But if you notice what's going on in that GIF, there's no garbage sending lines in like some versions of Tetris. However, players can keep an eye on their opponent's screen as a strategy if they so choose to do so, and can vary their aggression accordingly. Interestingly, I noticed that younger players do this far more frequently than the veterans. Games start at level 18 as it facilitates the highest scoring potential. Level 18 lasts until a player clears 130 lines, at which point it transitions and they advance to level 19, and the game speeds up dramatically with only the best players being able to survive at this higher speed. The game will stay at this speed, increasing in level and score values until 230 lines and the level 29 kill screen is reached, where the game soon ends. The drama and excitement escalates as players race toward their imminent top-out death. If a player tops out or dies, the other player continues playing until either they top out or they surpass the score that their opponent has achieved. So let's take a look at one of these match ends. This is from 2017.
Just reaching level 26.
Right.
But he's
at
still
this speed, might not be possible for him to catch up. You'll have to have a well set up now and just make all Tetrises.
We have a potential now for a kill screen on our first match from Harry.
There it is.
So Harry hit the kill screen.
No more lines.
He's ahead.
60,000 point lead. Buko needs to make at least 2 Tetrises to catch up.
And he's
Let's see if he can do it.
He's only got 2 levels to do it right now, 27 and 28.
He's going to have to play super aggressive.
Okay, well, he's going for the triple.
He did a triple.
Yeah,
That's not going to be enough. He's going to have to go for a Tetris. It's Tetris or death at this point for Buko. Let's see if he can do it.
I think he's going for the second well Tetris right now. He's going. Oh, he could be able to get it in.
Tetris for Buko.
Oh my God, he's right there.
One more Tetris for Buko, and we could see it.
Can he do this? Is he going? Oh, he's going for it.
There it is. Tetris for Buko, level 29, kill screen. He has done it.
Wow. So right here at the now just.
So yeah, Harry's one of the best players in the world, and he doesn't get taken out very easily at all. So the fact that Matt Buko was able to see his predicament and count the number of lines he had left to even be able to score and possibly win. If he had made any other lines in that sequence, he wouldn't have been able to beat Harry, period. So he really pulled off like a last-second adjustment, and that was very impressive. And to this day, a lot of people say that that's one of the most exciting rounds of Tetris. So I thought I would use that clip as a way to illustrate how matches end in the CTWC usually. So our rules have improved, with most of our format stabilizing in 2016. Our first year, we didn't have pre-qualified slots, or we used to have these pre-qualified slots, so if you had like a Guinness World Record or a Twin Galaxies record, you'd get in automatically, but we've done away with that completely. We now have 40 slots, and all of them have to be earned on site, because if you travel to one of these things, you should have a fair shot like everybody else. We also had rounds for attempting highest lines before, and that started at level 9, which is super slow compared to what you see there. And we found that these phases took too long and didn't provide the excitement like the rounds that you make Tetrises in and that they're rewarded the most. Grand finals are now 3 out of 5 rounds instead of 2 out of 3, and that provides a more satisfying conclusion. Since these changes, we've seen huge improvements in our competitors' results and increased interest in our scene. We found that if players have a clear goal knowing what to practice for and the milestones for their growth, because those are universal across just playing NES Tetris, they're more motivated to practice and give it their best shot. With our qualifying scores constantly getting higher and higher every year and new contenders rising into the scene, it ends up being a metric for a global, practically viral skill increase on a 30-year-old game that would probably not otherwise get that kind of attention. So people are studying it and enjoying it more. It's very interesting to see that dynamic because not every game gets to have that. So it's almost like the game gets a second life from what we're doing. We stuck with what worked while continuously improved where we were able to, and running sort of like esports in this way as a learning process. And we're always looking for more ways to build. So our first year, we barely had game screens with labels. I mean, look at that janky pixel name. I mean, it's like barely acceptable. But this was back in 2010. And our tech and broadcast abilities have since improved with HD output and the stat overlay system. But that tech has had a purpose. So you can see here the difference between 9 years, 2010 and 2018. Now, while other esports focus mostly on a game screen, you'll notice that for the Classic Tetris World Championships, our competitors' faces are featured prominently in the presentation. And we found it helps viewers connect on a really emotional level with our competitors, embracing a human element with every misdrop wince, sigh of relief after a crazy dig, and an imminent death gulp coming across in epic fashion. Fans really enjoy things like European favorite Yanni's intense expressions up in the upper left corner, Matt Bruco's facial antics, and Green Tea's signature smile, which you see on the left. We've started to implement hand cameras to highlight the pure physical skill involved in maneuvers like hyper-tapping, and continue to experiment by adding new stats to the overlay, such as the Tetris percentage and burn counter, which help illustrate the complexion of a match better. Our main rule set works very well, but we're still striving to keep things fresh with other possibilities and have added side tournaments for other game variations, which may open the door for players that may not normally excel or participate in the main event. Last year, we had a speed run to level 19, but of course, Corian won that because he's like super fast and super good, and yeah, we didn't have a chance. And we also had a no next box tournament, which had interesting results because you'd have players who are normally really good and they telegraph the next piece really well. They died really fast, so that was interesting to see. So this year, there's talk of maybe having a dance pad Tetris battle, and I, for one, would love to be part of that, and that'll be a lot of fun for spectators. So even if you find a formula that works for your main event, don't stop thinking of new ideas that might be fun to try. So as our competition grew and evolved, players developed their own styles and personalities, and along with some great stories. And while it's impossible to mention or show them all, I'd just like to mention a few that stand out because they're fun, and they're good at a variety of things. So Harry Hong, with his unrivaled speed and aggression. Corian, he's a hyper-tapping grandmaster from Japan. Alex Kerr is like a genius living encyclopedia of all things Tetris. If we need to know anything, technical trivia, things down to the frame, Alex will know. The lovable Ben Mullen, the iconic voice of fighting esports announcer James Chen. Anyone here know who James Chen is in fighting announcing? Yeah, he's great to work with. And the absolute professionalism of Arda Okal, who's a new member of our team. The entertaining commentary of Heather Ito. She's married to Jonas, but she's really into Tetris herself and has added a lot to our commentary. And the memorable antics and centerwell of Zizix, or is it Hauser, because he keeps changing his name every year. But as the years pass, we have these characters and interesting people that make CTWC what it is. So now, meet Jonas Neubauer. We're going to start to look at these champions now. He's what we call the GOAT, or greatest of all time, the Michael Jordan of Tetris. He's won 7 Tetris World Championships, including the very first one in 2010, and is widely considered to be the best NES Tetris player of all time. But he's also become a strong community leader, helping to grow our scene, running streams where he shares his techniques and provides advice. He does commentary at regionals and other events, and he has basically become our Tetris hero, ambassador, and our final boss, with his consistency and ability to persevere being his trademarks. I really believe that interest in our scene increased and grew as a result of him being such a positive force for what we do, and that applies to what this next segment will be about. And I've got another video to show. Jonas back in the lead now.
Oh, beautiful play right now. Oh, great stuff for Jonas. And he's going to get a Tetris at level 26.
Level 26 Tetris. Jonas now with a wide lead of 80,000 points. This is going to come down to Joseph's ability to Tetris at a high level.
Gonna need some cleanup here. There we go. There's a little bit of cleanup. Oh boy, things are dangerous for him. So he's got to clean now. He's got to clean, but he couldn't get the piece. Yeah, he didn't get the piece all the way over there. He's got 100,000 lead. He has to count on Joe. But Joseph, he's been able to do it before. He's made it to level 32. It's all up to this right now.
Jonas staying alive and making the Tetrises could mean the victory here. Boom, Tetris for Joseph. 3 more.
The pressure is on the kid right now.
Crazy build going on.
Always going for the Tetris.
He held out. Boom, Tetris for Joseph. Can he do it?
Away.
One and change. One and change will do it. Oh, and a long bar. Is it going to come? Where is it? Or is there going to be a drought? How is this going to play out? Oh, okay, he takes the double.
Perfect. It's set up now. He's still waiting. 13-piece drought. 17-piece drought. There's the double.
Boom! There it is. Tetris for Joseph. And we have a new Tetris World Champion. 16-year-old Joseph Saley has done it.
Oh my goodness. Your new Classic Tetris World Champion, taking it away from 7-time champion Jonas Neubauer. The young kid on the block. He has done it. Unprecedented results here.
Jonas back in the lead. So yeah, that was this past CTWC 2018 Grand Finals. Now meet Joseph Saley. He became interested in competitive Tetris after watching the 2016 championship videos on YouTube, boom, Tetris for Jeff, and he liked the memes. He then watched Jonas's streams on Twitch and ended up learning the game really quickly. In 2018, with his crazy hyper-tapping skills, he became the first player to reach level 31, then the first player to reach level 32. He did a one-handed max out. If you notice, he actually holds his controller differently than everybody else. At the age of 16, he entered the Classic Tetris World Championships, his first gaming competition ever, just to see if he could qualify, and because he wanted to hang out with us Tetris players and people, not having any expectations for himself. He ended up tearing through the bracket before taking on the 7-time champion Jonas Neubauer and swept him 3-0. Joseph Saley is a current Tetris World Champion, showing the world that anyone, any age, can learn and master classic Tetris, opening the doors to a new generation and the future. We couldn't have written a better or more dramatic Cinderella story, but it happened, and our Tetris ambassador, Jonas, showed nothing but the highest caliber of class and sportsmanship, happy to pass the torch on to this new generation, well, at least until this year's World Championships. Now, if you look at these stats, Jonas Neubauer is a DAS user, and Joseph Saley is, he's a hyper tapper. So there's 2 different styles at work there. You have a veteran who's kind of like from the NES era, and then you have Joseph, who wasn't even alive when that stuff was being made. So there's a lot of interesting things going on just in Tetris right now, competitively. So we're going to talk a little bit about our community and what makes it great. We think that anything that's evolving into an esport can kind of learn from what's happened with us. Our community base started with internet forums and rounding up of top players when we first started looking for them and to make that Ecstasy of Order, the Tetris Masters documentary, and when we first started the CTWC to find out who the best Tetris player in the world was. There are communities for modern Tetris like Hard Drop, and many of their top players cross over in their involvement between classic and modern Tetris. As other resources such as YouTube and Twitch increased in popularity, interest in the CTWC grew, and new players began to join the fray. Something we have in common with speedrunning communities is the sharing of information and resources. Former world champion Harry Hong was one of the first players to stream, and Jonas Neubauer followed suit not long after. Current champion Joseph was even streaming, displaying his techniques as he was learning them for himself on the road to the 2018 championship. This was before he even won. All of these interactions make our community strong, friendly, and approachable, despite the high levels of skill involved. One thing we noticed is how happy and energized we are as a community just to see each other succeed. We have a quirky and fun culture. People new to seeing what we do seem to be attracted to it because we just seem like we're having a blast and we're all so chill and sportsmanlike. Many people have commented that they just want to go to Portland to hang out with us and play Tetris and try to qualify, and they end up being contributors. Yeah, they end up being contributors to our community and become more friends to hang out with. And speaking of quirky, there's the memes. So most of you probably saw it on the way in or before, but just because this is going to be uploaded to the GDC Vault, I'm going to have to play it again. So this 2016 finals video with Jeff Moore and Jonas Neubauer went viral with nearly 10 million views, and this screenshot's actually from today. It's at like 9,950,354, so it's like this weekend it's gonna hit 10 million. I was really hoping it would hit it before today, but like I even told like our social media people, it's like, come on, get on the horn, tell people to go to bang on that link to get it to 10 million. It'll happen. It's okay. But this is what's
more Tetris than you can handle.
I apologize.
Jeff, and now Harry on top. Okay, boom, Tetris for Yanni and Tetris for Jeff. Jeff with a Tetris. And
boom,
Jeff. Boom, another Tetris for Jeff.
Tetris.
Boom, Tetris for Harry.
Wow.
Boom,
Jeff.
Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Scores are neck and neck.
This is a very neck and neck match. It's very neck and
scores
neck.
are going to be neck and neck.
Again, neck and neck. Like they're both getting the same place basement. Very fortunate place basement. Very neck and neck.
Neck and neck, neck and neck, neck and neck. We're going to be neck and neck. We have our first
qualifier for the quarterfinals.
Jeff advances. Corian now advances into the top 4. So we've got our top 4 decided. 3, 2, 1, go! Boom, Tetris for Jeff. All players neck and neck.
And nerves aren't a factor from the newbies in the final.
Boom, Tetris for Corian. So now we're neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Harry and Jeff. Harry taking the first round. And we continue with Jonas versus Corian. Neck and neck.
Yeah.
Neck and neck.
Yeah.
It's not. All right, Jeff takes 1 round, so now we're 1-1 with Jeff versus Harry. All right, real neck and neck.
Neck and neck.
Neck and neck, neck and neck, neck and neck, neck and neck.
And
boom, Tetris for Jeff. Jonas wins the match versus Corian. Harry has been eliminated, and Jeff made the top 2. Jeff facing Jonas Neubauer in the grand finals. 3, 2, 1. Go! Yep, we're neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Another Tetris for Jeff. Boom, 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 Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Jeff, boom, Tetris. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. Jeff takes our first round. Neck and neck, neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff.
Neck and neck.
Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. And Jonas takes that round.
Takes that round.
Now 1-1. Boom, Tetris for Jeff.
Tetris for Jeff.
Neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Boom, Tetris. Neck and neck. Neck and neck.
Tetris for Jeff.
Neck and neck.
Neck and neck. Tetris
Boom,
for Jeff.
boom, Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. Neck and neck. Boom,
Jeff,
Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. Yeah, they'll be in the Jeff. Jonas's lead at the end.
Eastman places.
Boom, Tetris for Jeff. 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 Boom, 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 Tetris for Jeff. 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 Neck and neck. Neck and neck. Ready for a Tetris. Where is the long bar? There it is. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. Neck and neck. Boom, Tetris for Jeff. It's not gonna happen, guys.
Oh!
And your winner, Jonas Neubauer. Boom, Tetris for Jeff.
So sorry for having to see that again, and hopefully you're not too sick of it by now. The meme will always live, I hope. So boom, Tetris for Jeff caught on as a meme. Most of the 15,000 comments on the 2016 finals video are boom, Tetris for Jeff or some variation. And then there's these compilation videos. I need to thank Procrast for making that, because it really sort of, I don't know, condensed everything that was great about boom, Tetris for Jeff into one video, and it's the best one out there. Some people love it, some people hate it. I was completely unaware of boom, Tetris for Jeff until months later. And by then, they were already making T-shirts for the meme, like this. And it's a really great shirt. And if you buy one of these, it actually helps support the CTWC. So that's another good thing. By the way, this is Alan, another teenager who got into NES Tetris thanks to the memes. And he's already nearly a maxed-out player, and he qualified in the top 8 in our West Coast regionals this January. And I've noticed a pattern, and the younger players out there really like the memes. And the fact that Joseph and Alan both got into it because of it, there's something there. Like, you can't force a meme, but if you're able to kind of roll with it and embrace them, then you could introduce a new generation to your game. It's crazy. It's a great story, though. So to explain a little, the reason why I even say boom Tetris for everybody, I've done that ever since our first year. Its origin is a nod to when the Nintendo World Championships announcers would occasionally say, boom, Tetris, because the kids back then wouldn't make Tetrises too often, so it was a little bit more special. And it actually predates Boom Headshot, because FPSs and separate head collisions didn't exist back in 1990. In the 2016 finals, I said Boom Tetris for Jeff so much by accident, people thought I was biased, or they thought I had a thing for Jeff or something. I mean, I like Jeff, but not that way. One time I screwed up and said, Boom Tetris for Jeff when Jonas had made a Tetris, and that was pretty embarrassing. And in fact, when I first saw how big the response was, and that there were 6 million views at the time, and all the comments were like Boom Tetris for Jeff, and some people were hating on it, I thought it meant my doom. I actually thought I really screwed up, and I was like hanging my head down, and I was like, man, I'm so totally fired. I'm like, it was nice doing, the commentator gig, but it's over now. And then Vince told me, no, you're doing a great job, and I'm like, you're crazy. I just kept saying the same thing over and over again, like that's not professional. But it became evident that it had this amazing effect on our scene. Fans would talk about how they loved the CTWC and got into it because of Boom Tetris for Jeff, and I'm like, really? I think it sank in when I ended up on this ESA panel on esports at San Diego Comic-Con last year, and a family wanted a picture with me, and they said, we've never seen you before, but we know your voice really well, pointing out that their kids watch Boom Tetris for Jeff over and over and over again, like a drug. So I've learned to embrace it and have fun with it. And it seems like it seeped back into the games themselves. I was really moved that this appeared in Tetris Effect, which is, like one of the newer games that came out for it, and that was the trophy. Boom Tetris was a trophy, and that was like a nod to our competitive community, and that really made me feel like what we were doing made a difference and put something nice back into Tetris, increasing the interest in it. And if you look on the right side, that's Tetris 99, and they could have any effect that they wanted to for the KO. I would think they would just say KO, but they made it actually say boom. So that was pretty cool. And that game's really popular right now. Are you guys out there playing Tetris 99? Nice. A couple people out there. How about Tetris Effect? Okay. Just got to gauge some popularity out there. So when any kind of Tetris is now seen, especially on the internet, the common reaction is like Boom Tetris for Jeff now. I was watching the Nintendo World Championships, I think it was 2017, and they had Tetris as one of the games, and the chat room was just like Boom Tetris for Jeffing in there, and Jeff wasn't there, so. We've got other memes like Neck and Neck and Peaceman Places, but they aren't as universal and well-loved as Boom Tetris for Jeff. And here's some of the comments that showed up on the YouTube video. That meme helped to get people watching competitive Tetris, but a funny thing happened. People would stay and watch the whole thing, not know where the time went. That was a common thread in the comments. This sticky attribute where people click on the video and end up watching the whole thing, we think it could be the cause of the YouTube algorithm recommending our videos, like the 2016 finals, over and over again and expanding it to a wider audience because I guess they know what people actually watch. And many viewers would then get hooked and go and binge watch the rest of our videos. So the meme just did great things for us. Now to go to sort of like a darker side of where we were, we almost didn't survive. Like the CTWC came on the brink of being just ended because after our first tournament in 2010, we wanted to continue it, but it takes money and it takes resources and time, and people have to work hard on it. And our second event in 2011 took place at USC Los Angeles, so we didn't have the kind of foot traffic that we do at, say, Portland Retro Gaming Expo, and not a lot of people knew about it, and it cost a lot, to rent out a venue and to run everything on your own. And we did have help from EA, who was a Tetris licensee at the time, but it was just like insurmountable. We didn't think that we'd be able to do one in 2012. Things looked grim, and it looked like we were going to top out and game over. But we were saved by a miracle. For our third year, we were encouraged by Chuck Van Pelt, who runs the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, to have the event at his show, since some of our founders, like Adam and Robin, were local. So we gave it a shot. And I didn't want to go there because I was just like, man, I'm going to like all these anime cons and all these video game events, and I didn't want to have to go to another state to do this thing, but I was like, you know what? I like what you guys are doing, and I felt a connection to it. So I went up there and I slept on Adam's floor, and I'm like, all right, I'll go and commentate your thing. So I went there and I went to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, and I freaking loved it. Like all these retro games, I just bought all this stuff that I couldn't get anywhere else, and I liked the culture and what they did for retro gaming there. So even if I didn't have this gig, I would just go there just to go and have fun at the expo and hang out with my friends and stuff. So great show. So having the tournament at the Retro Gaming Expo gave us an excited built-in audience for free, and this was a huge turning point for us. Because with the CTWC now having a permanent home, we didn't have to worry about the venue and the other logistics, and it freed up our time and resources to focus on what mattered most and expand and improve the tournament. So they experienced, the Portland Retro Gaming Expo experienced a huge surge in growth around that time, and we were able to grow with it. As interest in the CTWC increased in recent years, more people are now traveling Portland specifically to compete in and spectate the CTWC. Symbiotic relationships can be pretty awesome. So when we first started this, we didn't know whether we'd be able to get official backing and approval from the IP holders of Tetris, even though I used to work for them. The Tetris company, or BPS. So we did contact them, and Hank showed up at our first tournament, and Alexei even sent a video. It was pretty cool. We put the honest work and effort into it, and I think that's why we were able to get them to do that for our first event. We would later see involvement from companies like EA, Ubisoft, Sega, and most recently Enhance with Tetris Effect. Our community and professionalism was a key part of that. Members of our staff and founders having backgrounds in production, events, competitive gaming, and esports played a huge factor. So this grassroots yet official esports event dream, it can be done. And with a brand as iconic and important as Tetris, we're very happy that it's not only growing new competitors and champions, but what we do reflects back positively back on the Tetris brand and the games that we all love and cherish. So while the focus of our tournament activities is the classic NES Tetris, we also help promote the current or newest versions of it. Most recently, we partnered with Enhanced Games for Tetris Effect on PlayStation VR, with special demos at the CTWC, and legendary game designer Tetsuya Mizuguchi present. I didn't even know he was coming, and when he showed up, I almost had a heart attack. He's actually here this year too at GDC, so hopefully some of you have seen his session as well. Top players in our Tetris community were also on hand to provide developer feedback for them and to show off their moves in a special tournament. We also have side tournaments on popular newer Tetris variants, such as Tetris the Grandmaster. Those are some arcade games. And the CTWC has then become a celebration of all things Tetris, and licensee partners and IP holders all look forward to every year bringing the old and new together. So even prior to our last tournament, one of our CTWC stars and organizers, Trey Harrison, was featured in a pre-release Tetris Effect VR demo video on YouTube, and it quickly gained 8 million plus views, helping to promote the upcoming title. We look forward to helping strengthen the Tetris brand in ways like this going on into the future. So here's some takeaways. Know your game well, inside and out, if you want to have an esport, kind of happen for it. But be sure to reach out and enlist experts on the game who know its rules, mechanics. Making sure your video signal's okay. Okay. Make sure that you enlist experts on the game who knows its rules, mechanics, and nuances, because they might also become your potential competitors and the heroes of your esport. The CTWC wouldn't have started had this step not been taken a decade ago. A great rule set can make almost any game fun for competition, so find what's most fun about your game and bring out the competitive aspect of it. For example, the best excitement in Tetris is about building and scoring Tetrises, pushing the limits of survival, not just playing fast or playing forever. Stats and metrics that encourage analysis and discussion and adding elements that make it easier for audiences to understand what's going on help make it more fun to watch, leading to audience expansion. And if a high-tech method of conveying it isn't possible, like what we're doing, you can just do it through commentary. So we're nerdy, we're quirky, and we're super welcoming with strong sportsmanship, and we all love seeing each other succeed. And one awesome thing that our social media has been doing lately is posting and retweeting the accomplishments of all walks of players on their journey through Tetris mastery, whether it be a new personal best in an attempt to max out NES Tetris, or finally winning that first victory royale on Tetris 99. Celebrating each other's successes in the nature of what we do. We're very proud that we love being an example of the very best of what video games can represent. When you have a story in which a 16-year-old kid watched our championships, got into it because of the memes, learned from the world champion on Twitch, then became champion himself in just a year, the dream of esports suddenly becomes within reach for everyone. So find partners with common goals and audiences. Gaming and retro gaming events made a lot of sense for us because having a common audience, it brought our players to their event, and it gave us an audience that just watched our stuff because it was going on in the background. I'm still shocked that people are okay with missing out on all those great deals of retro games that happen when the show is closing, but that's just me. For those communities seeking sponsorship or endorsements from events and IP holders, showing a strength of community and running events professionally, even without their official blessing, can potentially earn it. We're fortunate things happened the way they did, but there are other examples of this happening, such as in the fighting game scene, or another NES favorite Tecmo Bowl with the Tecmo Madison tournaments. The prospect of growing a strong esports presence is attractive to many IP holders, so if you're a fan with a plan and a good community, it may be possible. Our internet presence started off small and humble, but we didn't let that deter us from getting our stuff out there. My gut reaction to seeing my own repetitive commentary, I would have been embarrassed and I would have wanted to hide it. But that would have been a mistake because it turned into this positive meme that a lot of people love. So don't be too embarrassed about your stuff because you never know what would happen. And now we're going to get into a bonus takeaway, which is, as a game designer, I feel compelled to take what I've observed and see if it can be applied to games and development. So I thought I'd touch on it. So while NES Tetris has a max out as a built-in life goal, like a bucket list thing, that's not to say that such goals or mechanics can't be devised by design for games and development. It doesn't have to be score. It could be something like a perfect run or performing a time-based challenge or something like that. Achieving Grandmaster status in the Tetris Grandmaster games, which are the arcade ones by Eureka, you have to survive invisible Tetris in the endgame credits. And that's an example of an intentionally designed goal for players to chase to prove their skill in a totally different Tetris game. What your game can offer to facilitate the proof of skill over time and true mastery is something to think about. If you implement skill-based goals, it can drive the competitive instinct and discussion, which can start a competitive community. If your game has mechanics that are unique to it, does it have easy to understand, interesting terminology to back it up? How about fun metaphors that work for it? Words like Tetris, burns, well, drought, and dig help define our gameplay identity and encourage commentary. In sports, celebratory verb terms like touchdown, slam dunk, and goal from soccer are all iconic. We've got, boom, Tetris for Jeff, which is great because it can be an encouragement, explanation, or exclamation, or just a celebration. So what terms and language does your game have, and can it be improved for esports viability? Focus on the mechanic of the game that is most fun or unique and expand on that to find what the best esport context or competitive heart of your game are. Think of your game as a tool for facilitating competition, even if it might not be designed to do that at first. Experiment and add things like scores, timers, extra modes, handicaps, or new metrics, and something competitive may be born. If you have no two-player or versus mode, well, what if you put two setups side by side? Having a score time or time race usually works even in the worst case scenario, and that's what we did in the 90s when we had these big, massive console gaming competitions. So does your game have a finishing moment, like a game over or a death? In the best sporting events and competitions, there's huge and impactful moments, like a knockout punch for boxing is a good, relatable analogy for a fighting game. In Tetris, for us, it's topping out as our death mechanism. So while we could have gone for something like a 3-minute score attack or a first to 25 lines race, that wouldn't have the impact of impending doom that we have in NES Tetris. So forcing people to play to the kill screen is actually kind of an addicting part of what we do. Take advantage of the drama of a finish with commentary and build it up however you can. Now, for any competitive context, the game and competition has to facilitate fairness. Even for Tetris, having the RNG of the piece being the same between players is one of the things that made a big difference in making the game feel legitimate and competitive. Some games implement things like rubber banding, like in a racing game, they artificially cheat for the player that's behind to make them catch up, to make the games more fun for noobs. Mario Party and Mario Kart are some pretty bad offenders. But unfairness like that can outright prevent a game from being considered viable for esports. So I suggest restricting those elements to beginner modes, kids modes, or allow options to control or disable them, and be transparent with your players. So this past year, we've gained an unprecedented amount of mainstream coverage on everything from Fox News, CTV Canada, to the BBC. But I think it's the inviting competitive atmosphere is what gave us stories like Joseph Saley's. As a video game champion myself, starting out as a kid, being inspired by TV shows like Starcade and other classic gaming competitions, that's what allowed me to find my path to success in life, and now to be involved in the CTWC and seeing it inspire a new generation of champions, it's really like a dream come true. I feel like I've come full circle. So if you have a game franchise or IP, or are involved in a games community and want to grow an esports presence, it's a wonderful opportunity to create something positive and life-changing. In closing, NWC champion Thor Ackerlund said something to me that stuck with me. He even said it in the Ecstasy of Order movie, and I'd like to expand upon it a little here. Of all games, Tetris is the most like life. Death is imminent, life isn't fair, but if you can deal with what they give you and break through, that's what makes you a winner. So here's to a healthy stack. May your long bar droughts be short, and when the pieces fall into place, may all of your Tetrises go boom. Boom, Tetris for you. We're always looking for new sponsors, so if you have an IP and are interested, come contact us and via email as seen here at tetrischampionships@gmail.com. And if there's time, I can take questions. I think I've got about 5 minutes left, so go ahead and approach one of the microphones.
So I was completely unaware of all of this, but I believe we worked together at Tengen. So I'm Franz Lanzinger.
Oh my gosh, you're the programmer of Clax for Tetris, or Clax for NES, right?
No. Clax was Dave Oriva.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did Miss Pac-Man.
Oh, right.
Miss Pac-Man, and when you said, boom, Tetris for Jeff, I thought you were talking about Jeff Yonan.
Jeff Yonan. No, Jeff Yonan was a big part of my growing up. He was an inspiration to me. I kept seeing his name on all the shooters in the back of EGM, and I wanted to be just like him, and I loved hanging out with him, and he designed those mazes in Miss Pac-Man for you. I remember that.
Yeah, he did, and I think we went to the 1989 championship. And I remember Jeff...
I first met Jeff at the 1990 Nintendo World Championship.
Oh yeah, so I think he had a problem with his controller.
Right.
He slammed it down on the ground.
Swung it around above his head.
Oh yeah.
Bashed it against the station at the Nintendo World Championships on stage, and he had to get escorted off stage and out of the venue. And I think he got banned from all Nintendo events after that.
It's very a shame because he was one of the top players. He really...
Yeah, no, he's a really good player, and I remember that was my first exposure to him, but we became great friends, and he's not the Jeff. Jeff Moore is the Tetris Jeff, but Jeff Yonan holds a very special place in my heart, and I really hope I get to hang out with him and work with him some more in the future.
Anyway, I don't have any questions, but I thought I'd say hi.
Yeah. Hi, Franz. Good to see you.
You touched a little bit on this, I think, but do you have any suggestions for how to make esports approachable to folks that'll never be a world championship, but they still want to compete and play and have a good time? Okay, so what you can do is you can have side tournaments that aren't the core tournament, and maybe you don't let the top tier players enter that one. And like I mentioned, there's like a dance pad battle for Tetris. Like the people who are like super good at Tetris probably aren't going to be the best at that, but the dance players might be really good at it. So having a side challenge can get people kind of like interested in it. Like you can change the rules a bit, make it easier for folks. Like maybe having I wouldn't exactly say amateur rules, but think of something creative, like playing the game on like a super easy mode and then seeing how far they can scroll the screen in like 1 minute or something. Like something really basic, right? Like something that they don't need a super high level of skill to pull off, but it might just be interesting to see what comes of it. That's great, thank you. Any other questions? Anyone just want to come up and make me say boom Tetris for them? Okay, well, thanks for coming to my session. I know that there was Devil May Cry and some other stuff going on. Thanks for coming to Tetris. We're going to continue, doing our event every year, and hopefully we'll grow and inspire more kids to, stay off of Fortnite and stay off the streets and, play some competitive Tetris. So, boom, Tetris for you and Tetris for GDC.